all of this sucks, right? Like this show isn't good. We're not playing well. I just got in a fight with one of my best friends. Fuck this. In the end, that was the last show we played.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was the Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I'm your host, Mike Doyle. Before we start, there's a book out called Where Are Your Boys Tonight? The Oral History of Emo's Mainstream Explosion, 1999 to 2008. It's written by Chris Payne, and he had asked me before the book was published to give a couple snippets about things that I had to say about the scene. So my buddy Chris Barker from Lanemeyer sent me a text last night saying that there's an audio version on Spotify, and he heard my name get quoted a couple times. So if you want to go hear that, go check it out wherever you listen to books. If you have Spotify Premium, you can listen to there because you could do audiobooks on there. Or you could go buy the book on Audible, which would be pretty cool for Chris. Hunter-gatherer carved out a niche in Athens, Georgia between approximately 1997 and 2004, folding into the post-hardcore and emocore wave that was surging at the time. Their music drew equally from punk's intensity and emo's emotive melodies, yet with a poppier, hook-oriented bent, making their sound more accessible than one might expect from that blend. Despite a relatively brief run and limited releases, they made their mark in a vital era for Athens music, resonating with scene contemporaries and contributing to the city's enduring reputation for musical diversity and authenticity. When I was on tour in the late 90s, we played a couple shows with these guys, and they just created an Instagram, and they liked a post or something that I had, and I was like, holy shit, I have to get these guys on because there's like really nothing out there about them. I don't know how ChatGPT was able to suck all that information, do that write-up, but I was pretty impressed when I read that. These guys were buds of Whippersnapper, who we toured with one time, but when we go to Athens, we played some shows with them, and Whippersnapper's awesome, and so Hunter-Gatherer, these guys were also just really cool dudes. Before I get into it, there is a part towards the end where Matt's telling me about their bassist Jason, who recently passed away in March, and this was due to alcoholism. So we ended up recording that whole part, which was pretty small, and he reached out to me and was like, hey man, can I kind of expand on this a little bit? Because he wanted to shed some light on what really happened. So there's a part where I just kind of mentioned this is where here's the audio he sent me, and then I jump back into the rest of the interview. So I'll say that in the interview so you know where you are at that moment. In our part of it, I had mentioned this is probably pretty important to include, and he also agreed because there's a pretty decent size listening base to this podcast, and I'm sure there are people out there listening who might be struggling with alcohol, and this might be helpful to you because Jason ended up drinking himself to death, and I think that's a scary thing for people who might be thinking about stopping or they're watching someone do this. I think it's a pretty powerful part to the podcast, and I'm happy that Matt sent over this clip because it really sheds a light on just how bad it got at the end. But yeah, so luckily I got Matt on the old Zoom, and this is what we chat about. Playing with them back in the day, finding their old Angel Fire website with the first 95 shows they played, growing up with Whippersnapper, Chuck from Hot Water Music working at a Subway, getting compared to Hot Water Music, the Athens scene, the Frodus/Refuse show that they played, almost signing to Cargo Records, the roadie almost dying on the Europe tour, playing a women's prison, what led them to break up, the passing of their bassist Jason, his brother's label Aqualam Records, and a ton more. Lastly, if you want to support the podcast, you can go to thiswasthescene.com, and there's a donate button on there, and there's a couple ways you can donate, like $1 or whatever you want. Huge shout out to everyone over the years who has either joined the Patreon and is still paying $1, or they pay a little bit more, and I really appreciate you doing that. And then just the random Venmo payments I'll get where like on a Friday it'll be like $20 from someone. They're like, keep up the good work. It's really fucking cool, and people who have done that, you guys are awesome, and I appreciate everyone doing that and continually doing that because it does help keep the lights on for this thing, and it's greatly appreciated. I don't think I say it enough, but you guys are all the fucking shit. That's all I gotta say, so feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who'd love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. I was just trying to get some tabs open, so I have your Discogs open, and that's all I can find. So I was looking at Instagram, I was Googling Hunter Gatherer, and I put in Instagram, and this other band came up, an Americana band or something.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. Yeah, the tough thing about Googling hunter gatherer is you get
Everything.
you get a lot of historical sites.
Yeah, that probably it's we didn't have any of this shit back then, but I can imagine with some band names where they would have probably maybe hit that problem. They're trying to market themselves. And, yeah, we can't, no one can find us.
Yeah, I think at some point early on, we decided maybe huntergatherer.com or whatever was taken. And our website used to be rockandrollbeards.com. I don't know how I don't know how anyone would have found that. Like that's
So I was in Lanemeyer and we played, it was a couple times we played together in Athens because I think once when we were on tour with Whippersnapper,
makes sense. Yeah.
but I can't, I just remember I think yeah, it was on that tour. It was our third one because we had a new guitar player and at the end of that tour, we kicked out our drummer or he knew we were going to kick him out and then he quit. And then we came back and later he's still one of my best friends, which is good, happy ending. But I remember we played with you guys, and then we had a rider truck, and it was so fucking. I think we slept in it one night because you or someone recommended one of you guys or some band recommended Kroger's, which we had never heard of, and
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, stay in the parking lot. And this sucks so much. That didn't help with us with our mental states.
Did you sorry, did you sleep in a Kroger in your box truck in Athens? Or did you have to drive?
No, I think we were still in Athens and we pulled into a Kroger and we just parked in the parking lot and slept in the rider truck and froze.
Well, on behalf of me and Brian, past selves, I can't believe we didn't offer you a place to stay. That's awful.
I think you
Uh,
guys, no, I think you guys actually might have, but we had to get to the next show somewhere, and I think it was 10, 12 hours away or that, so we had to
oh shit.
go.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Got
think
it.
we had to get to Florida or some shit. Anyway, I'm stoked that I got you on this. Since there's nothing online, I'm really happy that I can like document this
Yeah,
and put it
yeah.
out there for you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We've been, I think I've told you this too, and we don't have to get too far into this, but we've been sort of working on stuff to like repress the record on vinyl and do like a discography or whatever. So we've been just like digging and digging and digging through the internet. And Chris, he was a guitar player and one of the singers. He apparently just kept everything. He like kept journals, he kept every flyer. So it's been kind of awesome to like look through that stuff. But we found an old Angel Fire website that had like our first 95 shows or something on it. So I was looking through that the other day and we played with y'all three times in Athens. And I think definitely one was with Whippersnapper.
Was one with Digger?
I think so. That may have been the one with Digger. And then
Yeah.
there was one with, do y'all do a tour with Humble Beginnings?
Yeah.
Okay. That was one of them. There was a show, I think this little bar, it was like a little punk rock bar called The Lunch Paper. That was with another Athens band called X86.
What's the website? Is it live where I can see it or is it on a folder, like a file?
No, it actually is live. I was looking at it earlier.
Copy and paste the link if you can. I want to look at it because that might help. That'll be cool questions and things because the structure is always the same. It's the origins of the band, the time you were together, recording albums. So that's always there. It's interesting when I'm talking to bands. There's like literally nothing online that I can find. You kind of have to fill in the gaps for me, and because I have nothing to really reference, and I don't know if there's any YouTube videos of you guys playing that helps with like kind of just make me think of shit.
Yeah, there's actually a few videos kind of buried in the depths of YouTube of us. I would have to dig a little bit and I could probably send those to you, but let's see if I can. It should be in my history. Like I was just looking at it.
Yeah, I was listening to because you sent over the zip file. I was listening to like All Is Quiet, Burn It Down. I really like those.
I appreciate it. That was like the last stuff we did.
I could tell it was a little bit newer just by the production or just I don't know, it just seemed like it was like kind of later on.
Yeah, and that was stuff that those were basically like demos, you know. And those were going to be on the second record that we were like writing. And that stuff to me is my favorite kind of stuff. It's like a little darker. It just feels like a little bit more like realized, but unfortunately we never got there. We never got to the second record.
Well, we'll find out why.
Yeah.
Through our journey.
Um,
Yeah, copy and paste the link into the the chat. Is it like an angelfire.com
Yeah.
thing?
It's crazy that it like still exists.
All right, man. So let's go back in time and let's just talk about how, you got in the punk scene and then how that led to the band starting.
I think it's like a twofold answer, like how I got into punk rock, or at least sort of the like beginnings of like the DIY stuff. In high school, my buddy Brandon, who I played in a band with, he had a friend that gave him the first karate record. I think Brandon ended up going to see karate at a house show in either Athens or Atlanta. And Brandon, shared that with me and some other friends, and it kind of blew my mind. There's this band is amazing, and they're playing houses, which is was like kind of a newer thing for me. That's not something I was like aware of. So that, and then
But that was in Athens?
no, that was in Hunter Gatherer started in a town called Peachtree City, which is south of Atlanta. That is where Whippersnapper is from. We grew up with Whippersnapper. We went to high school with them, and
Oh.
those were our buds.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. The band before Hunter Gatherer was called 47 Ronin. That was me and Brian and Jason from Hunter Gatherer and that guy Brandon. We did a split 7-inch with Whippersnapper.
Is that on the Discogs?
No, it's not. Well, it might be in the Whippersnapper Discogs.
Well, actually, so before you get into that though, getting into the scene, so where you grew up, what was that? So you went to karate and then you kind of opened your eyes to that. Like, so where did that lead you before you get into starting hunter gatherer?
Kind of the second part of getting into the like punk rock scene or whatever was Brian. After high school, he's 2 years older than me. So after high school, he moved down to Gainesville, Florida, and went to Santa Fe State College. He ended up working at the Subway where Chuck from Hot Water Music also worked, and they became friends.
Interesting. It's interesting where this goes because I know like you guys sound is very derivative.
And then I believe Brian lived in the same apartment complex as Wallard and George. I may have some of this, like these details a little, but so Brian was just friends with those guys. Like he would go to like some of the early hot water music practices and just like he was just friends with them. So very, very early on. So that was maybe like 94 or 5 or something like that. And when Brian moved back, he just like introduced me and a bunch of our friends to like this whole different world.
How old are you at this time?
Oh, geez. So I was probably 16, 17, maybe 18, somewhere around there. But yeah, so with kind of bringing back like the hot water music demo, and I think Finding the Rhythms was out, so he had that. We just kind of got introduced to that world, you know. And then when Hot Water would like play Atlanta or anything like that, we would drive and go see him and kind of hang out with him a little bit, and then just like go to house shows. You just sort of like stumble to that world a little bit.
It's interesting, like that was your intro because a lot of bands, because Hot Water was when I heard them from my buddy Casey. But it was, when he played it, I was like, I cannot get into this because it was just too rough. So that's interesting on your side of it. When you heard them, were you immediately into them, or did it take you a minute?
No, I was like hooked kind of instantly. I kind of grew up on Nirvana, and not to compare like hot water music to like Nirvana or whatever, but like I was into aggressive music. So it kind of like I'm wearing this Quicksand shirt, and this is kind of fascinating. Like I was listening to Quicksand early on, like maybe like 10th grade, ninth grade, something like that. That was through maybe 120 minutes on MTV or Headbangers Ball. So
Landmine Spring being on MTV.
yeah. And that's before I knew like Walter and all those guys' pedigree. So I had no clue about Gorilla Biscuits or even the hardcore scene, but I was like, oh, this band rules. And same with like Fugazi. Like I maybe in 8th grade heard 13 songs and was like, this is amazing, but had no clue about where they came from. So anyway, yeah, being kind of instantly hooked on hot water music was,
Pretty easy.
yeah. And the connection through like Brian made it pretty easy.
I think it's just so hilarious that he worked at a fucking Subway with Chuck.
Yeah.
I find that
Yeah.
so funny.
Yeah. There are pictures floating around that Brian has that are like hysterical. I got it. I don't want to dox anybody out or bring up anything, but there's some pictures of George that are just like, man, if you wanted to blackmail George, right? Or if you wanted to blackmail those guys in any way, like there's some photographic evidence to do it, but
I feel like Chuck would just roll in the Subway and be like, I caught a bunch of fish. They're like, George or Chuck, we can't. We're not making a fish sandwich. It's
yeah.
like, I have so much then.
Yeah.
So at this point, you're 17, and you said Brian. So Brian comes back from Florida, and are you guys in college at this point, or are you still in high school?
My high school career was, man, I hated every second of it. I would have graduated in 96. I was supposed to do half a year in 97, but I ended up dropping out because I don't know, man, I just hated it. Like I knew I just couldn't do it anymore. So Brandon would have graduated in 97. So I think that band 47 Ronin would have started in like 95. So we were a band for a couple years.
So was that the original name of the band?
It was pre-Hunter Gatherer. So that was the three of us and Brandon. And then we broke up. We had another really good friend. His name was Chris. Out of 47 Ronin, that's how Hunter Gatherer started. So it was really just like we plugged Chris in and it became just like a really different band. Like I would say 47 Ronin's more influenced by karate and that kind of like slower, like maybe a little, definitely not where karate went to, like a little jazzy or whatever. Like definitely not that, but a little more indie rock and yeah, just a little slower.
That's interesting that you guys were around that long because I'm on Discogs and I'm just like clicking your guys' names to see what else you did, and the 47 Ronin has the split with Whippersnapper. So you guys like have a 7-inch out, and you only just played a couple shows.
Yeah, we just like went for it, we're like, okay, we're gonna do this. And then Brandon just decided like he just didn't want to tour. He just felt like that wasn't the life for him. The rest of us were really bummed. We thought it was an awesome band and we were like getting ready to quote unquote do it. So we were really heartbroken. And then yeah, just Chris kind of came into the fold and once he did, it was kind of full on. We just started practicing every day. My parents were really, really supportive. So they turned this like we had like a split level house and my dad just like turned one of the rooms in the lower level into a practice space for us. So we would just go there and just practice every day, man. We just went for it. Our first show, we got out of 47 Roman. I don't know if that makes sense, but through AOL chat rooms, we were friends with we were friends with this girl. Her name is Amy, and she was really into the 47 Ronin song on that split 7-inch. We had sent her a copy, and she was putting together this fest, and it was the Cincinnati Fest, and she wanted us on that show. We said yes, and then we ended up breaking up. And we told her that, we had a new band and it was basically the same people. That was our first show in Cincinnati, Ohio, with like the craziest lineup. And I actually found a flyer for it not that long ago, but it was like, did you get that link?
Right now. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I'm just looking at the first show as you're talking, being like, okay, I'll let you just explain what that show was.
I was just talking to Chris about this and we were laughing. In some ways, we had no business being on this show. It's just like every like big insane band of that time, like September 1st, 1997, Mineral and Ghetto Kids and Braid and Hank Shaw and the list goes on. We had been in bands and we had played shows, but we were not tight and we were just we weren't good. Like there's no way we were good. And I remember having a lot of like technical difficulties, cymbal stands falling down, pedals being unplugged, just like worst case scenario. And I was talking to Chris about this, but I'm like, in a lot of ways, we had every right. If we're like working under the theory that this scene, like no gods, no masters, right? Like then why shouldn't we have played that show? But it's embarrassing to think about how bad we were.
I think I started somewhere, man.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, that show, like the first thing that caught my attention, it was like Mineral, Get Up Kids. I'm like, okay. And then Hank Shaw, I did an interview with them. That was a cool one.
So I listened to that one because we played a few times with Hank Shaw, and we weren't like buddy buddy with them, but like we would hang out at shows or whatever. But so, dude, listening to Harold's interview and a few others, I am like convinced. I have this theory, and I don't know how well it holds up. I'm sort of convinced that Hunter Gatherer was like the Forrest Gump of DIY punk rock. Like, like we were just at these like kind of monumental like places and shows, and sort of just like not really like recognized, right? We were just sort of like we were just almost flies on the wall. Like we were part of it, but Harold saying he was at that show or like they played and that's kind of where they got signed to Doghouse or whatever. Like Dirk was there. And I was like, oh my God, Dirk from Doghouse was at that show. I can't like I hope he didn't see us like we were so bad or whatever, you know? And then, and then if you look through that list a little bit, we played a few shows with Penfold, and again, we were sort of like we did like a small little weekend run with them. But Brian's interview where he was talking about that show in like Scranton or Wilkes-Barre with you and I,
Yeah.
we played that show. We played that show as well, and that's where we actually met Penfold.
Yeah.
Um,
June 5th, 1990. I can't believe you guys have this. This is ridiculous. It's
yeah,
June 5th, 1999 in Wilkes-Barre at Cafe Metropolis.
there's one before then, I
Oh
think.
yeah, and Pismos.
Well, with Penfold, there was, I think, a January show, January 9th. Penfold and you and I, and maybe a band called 1.21.
Yeah, 1.21 and more. Oh, you got Greenville, Backdoor. Backdoor was the skate place, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we played
yeah.
that. That was cool. That's where the Actuality of Thought video came about.
Yeah, yeah, we always did really, really well at the back door.
Well, do you think, because you're saying like you're the, and we'll get into it more with like the Forrest Gump, where you go to these monumental things and kind of overlooked or whatever. You guys definitely had like a hot water sound going on. That's what I remembered. I mean, even though like the look, like your bass player had that gnarly Amish beard going on.
Yeah, yeah, we called it the unbeard. Brian had it for a little while too. And Chris. They both had the anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Um Later stuff, like you said, I think the ISY comp stuff is those songs I think veer away from that kind of hot water sound a little bit. Like still there's dual vocals. And even some of the earlier demo stuff I think is like kind of weird direction we were playing around with. There's just no way to deny that hot water wasn't some sort of influence on us. We just can't like it's clear, We got compared all the time and
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, since you said that, like the Forrest Gump thing, I was thinking, was it negative or positive that you guys were compared to them?
I think it got a little old for us after a while. We kind of felt like we were trying to do, we weren't trying to not sound like hot water music, but we didn't like go into the practice space and go, okay, let's sound like hot water music, right? They were just an influence. And the dual vocals thing, just, I don't even remember that being a conversation of just like, we're going to have dual vocals. Chris and Brian both sang. So I imagine that came from hot water, right? It's got to be.
Like a lot of bands were ripping off No Effects and Pennywise, and they were doing like the Fat Wreck sound. So there were so many of them doing that that it was just kind of accepted. I feel like a Hot Water was doing their own thing. So if you are, kind of molding yourself a little bit around their sound or like you're taking influences from it, it's going to stand out more because there's less bands that are doing that until you get to like 2000 fucking 7 to 2011. Like that's the Fat Records thing with the Against Me's, and it gets a little bit rougher in the vocals and shit. And then it's like Saves the Day. They modeled their first fucking album off of Lifetime, like note by note, basically. Then they went off in their own direction and did their own fucking thing. But everyone was like, "Oh, this fucking Lifetime ripoff band," and they're like, "Yeah,
I don't know how much we like loved it or hated it until, the like 100th time someone was like, "Oh, you guys sound like hot water music." But later on, when our record came out, our label certainly promoted it as like sounds like hot water music, small brown bike or whatever. So in 2000, it was a selling point. And I think, as much as, hot water music and small brown bike, I think the general no idea catalog was a huge influence on us. For a while, that was a goal for like of ours to be on No Idea. We really wanted that. Like 12 Hour Turn is one of me and Brian's favorite bands. Like that would listen to those records over and over and over again. And a little later on, like Army at Punch, I don't know, man. That was just like Gainesville, Florida sound, quote unquote. Even though a lot of those bands didn't sound exactly alike, but there's a through line.
Well, when you guys just kind of jumping to 99, or actually no, 98, the first thing you guys put out, Hunter Gatherer, is that the My House is on Fire on the Run the Driver project?
The first thing would have been a demo tape, and it was 6 songs. That was called Imperfect Plan or something like that. It's in the files that I sent you.
Yep.
So that would have been, yeah, that would have been the first thing. And some of those songs, there's a song we had called "Oh Captain, My Captain" that's like 8 minutes long. Or like, and it's one of my favorite songs we ever wrote. Weirdly, to me, it doesn't sound anything like Where We Went. Later on, most of our songs just hit the like 3.5 minute mark.
Oh, the balls out title.
Yeah.
Such a 90s
Um,
thing.
totally. Just, yeah, just dudes being
Uh,
dudes. Crass.
so like, so okay, so at this point, you guys do the demo, and then it leads to Run the Driver project, which I guess is is like a small label at that time.
Yeah, that was just our label. We just put a like we
Oh,
just made that up. So we put that out ourselves.
how are you guys received locally, like in your scene? Because I remember going to Athens when we played there. It was some club, and I felt like the stage was like really high for some reason.
Yeah, Taste Your World.
Yeah, okay. But it seemed like that was the only place to play there.
Um, for a while, that was like one of the only clubs. It was a little punk rock bar called Lunch Paper, and they did shows. And I think we played a show there with y'all. I think there were some DIY spaces. There was always at least a few houses going. There's like warehouse shows and stuff like that. There was the Dead Body House and the Godless Red House, and let's see, there was one called House of Brave Souls. I think for a while there was a place called Boba Fettuccini's. That was a house.
Amazing.
But yeah, Athens was always, man, there was always punk rock shows going on. We did okay. It's hard because we would play these like warehouse shows with much more punk rock bands, right? Like Liberty Spikes, like Leather Jacket punk rock bands. And I remember one show we played and people started like slow dancing as like a joke, like slow dancing during some of our songs. I think we were well received after a while. Like we just lived there long enough and played enough shows that I think we had a small following. I think in general we always felt a little mm, like we didn't know where we fit in, if that makes any sense.
I couldn't get a gauge on the scene though. Like I said, like when we would go there, because even it shows on your list here, had the times we played there was with Whippersnapper and then with Humble Beginnings. Actually, and we played with Lounge there. I remember that show. I remember we'd go there and I was like, I can't. I was like, I don't know if I'd like playing here. Like there were some spots where kids would come out of the woodwork and be like, oh wow. And then I just remember like Athens just being like, I don't know if there's like a lot happening here.
I mean, it could be that. I do think.
Or maybe just because we were out of town and no one gave a shit.
Do you think the sort of, if I may call you guys pop punk? I don't know if
Yeah.
that's where. Okay, I don't think that went over so well in Athens ever. This is jumping around a little bit, but Whippersnapper played our last show, and it was in a DIY space called Tight Pockets. We curated our last show, and we wanted all of our friends to play it. Even our friends and other bands that we asked to play that were like, again, our friends and knew that we curated the show, were just like, wouldn't give Whippersnapper the time of day. Like they had a really hard time. Like I don't think they had a very big Athens following at all. I don't think
No.
people really gave them the time of day, unfortunately.
Yeah, I felt that too because we played there and I'm like, this is your hometown, man. There's like nobody here.
Yeah.
So when you guys put the first release out and then I feel like I'm jumping all over the place, but I'm just like my brain as I'm looking through this whole list. I'm like, oh my God, I remember that fucking place, or I remember the Duke Coffee House, and like all this shit. But then you guys do, let's see, you do a split with Rydell, and it's on Scene Police. Was there anything in between that?
Yeah, so we did our first tour in 98, and that was it was barely a tour. So we went out all of September, 30 something days or whatever, and played 11 shows.
Yeah, I see that.
Um,
Jesus.
but that first tour, half of it was with Mock Orange. So we met up with them in Ohio, and the way we got introduced to them was through Whippersnapper. I think Andy Munn introduced me and Brian to Joe, and Andy was like, "Hey, I think you guys kind of similar sound or whatever." Even though Mock Orange was always so much better than us and crazy good, but he thought there would be like a kinship there or something. Like we would get along, and our bands would fit well together or whatever. So we just asked Mock Orange if they wanted to do a tour, and they said yeah. And that was their first tour as well. Man, we got along with them so well. We just hit it off. And for a few years, we would just like trade shows back and forth or whatever. But yeah, we did that, and then like you can see, we just did like some random shows here and there, and we would always do dumb stuff, like the Penfold and You and I show. Like that was two shows we did on a weekend or something. So we would just drive up to Pennsylvania for two shows, just like
Yeah.
in the middle of winter. Like, what are we doing? But yeah, after the 7 inch was the Rydell split, and we got that through. We submitted a song. Do you remember the fanzine Nothing Left?
Nothing left.
I think it was
Maybe.
based out of PA.
Someone may have mentioned this in another interview. I know Just in Time for Nothing, but that was just this guy Brian Malloy just did kind of short stories. So no, I'm not 100% sure.
They would put out like a CD sampler. We had a song on that called 41798. Pretty sure that was recorded at the same time as the 7 inch songs. Somehow the guys Dennis and Emery from Scene Police heard that song, like had that zine, heard it, got in touch with us and said they wanted to do something with us. So that's how we got that. Rydell's a British band. They had ties to Scene Police already, so Scene Police just was like, "Hey, I think you guys would go well with Rydell. Why don't we do a split release?" So we said, "Yeah, man, let's do it."
Yeah, you got some good bands on here on the comps. You guys are on the Nothing Left #8 CD sampler. Jazz June, Elliot, Ink and Dagger, Mineral, with End Serenading says when they're on the way out. Mid Carson. Wow, my God. It's so weird reading this. I'm like, wow, I interviewed like five of these bands. This is fucking cool. That was always cool though, man. Like you got on a comp and you just were surrounded by these bands. You would just think like, man, we're up there with them. And then then they'd be on this crazy label and these tours, and you're like, okay, maybe we're not as close to them as we are.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right.
I do want to point out that I'm looking at the September. So you talk about the first tour where you do 11 shows in 30 days. To end that, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, technically it goes through into October, it looks like, but you play a fucking show on the 28th in Gainesville with Brodus and Refused.
Man, yes.
That would talk about, do you remember that show?
So well, up to a point. We had no clue we were playing that show. We had booked that tour, and man, much like everyone on this podcast has talked about, we certainly used Book Your Own Fucking Life. This guy, Jack Bailey, who was in the Blacktop Cadence, and I think he ended up being an Army of Paunch later. I got his phone number from somebody, probably one of the guys in Hot Water Music or something. And I remember calling him and him just like reading off contacts, just like this person in Boston, call them. And I just like wrote all these names down. So that was another way we got some shows. It's just this like hand me down list. We booked the show in Gainesville, and we just thought it was us and Mock Orange, and maybe they would throw a local on. And I remember getting into town. We were at like a little coffee shop or cafe, and Chris was making handbills just to like pass out along the street or whatever to people walking by. And I can't remember the exact verbiage, but it was like Mock Orange, Hunter Gatherer, Hardback, maybe some other bands. I remember getting to the show and being like, "Oh, we're the other bands." I mean, this is like that was Refuse's last tour, so I think it was like third to last show. I think they played Gainesville, Atlanta, like somewhere in Virginia. So that was a total shock, and we just felt again, just like, oh man, like I can't believe, like we definitely knew who Frodis were, obviously knew who Refused were, but not that familiar because that was just like a style of hardcore we like didn't listen to a whole lot.
Real quick, if you're needing an explainer video, that's what I do for a living. My company is drive80.com. You can email me at mike@drive80.com for some samples and pricing. Industries that I've created explainer animations for over the last 14 years are tech, software, medical, pharma, recruiting, nonprofits, accounting, ed tech, and more. That's all I'm going to say. So now back to the show.
We were super into Snapcase, but I remember after we played, we were outside, and I think we had like the merch table set up outside because the hardback was so small. So we were outside, definitely drunk, and Brian had cut himself somehow, and he was. It sounds so weird and gross, but he was like painting war paint on me in blood. Like he had like we were just like being drunk and stupid. And I remember looking over, and the guys in Frodis had their table next to us, and they would just like were looking at us like either scared or just like, what the fuck are these idiots doing? I remember Wallard, like most of the Hotwire music guys are there, and Wallard comes up and he's just like so concerned about this blood on my face, and he's just like, "Who did this? Who did this to you?" He was like ready to murder somebody, and we're like, "Yo, dude, no one, like no one did this. We're just being fucking stupid." I remember Heath from Mock Orange and I sitting behind. Did you ever play the hardback?
No, the only reason I know about it is because of the Hot Water Music quote unquote last show where they did like the live thing there, and that's how I had heard about it. But yeah, I was down in Fest a couple years ago, and I think it's gone, or they
Yeah,
moved it or
yeah.
something. Yeah.
Behind the drums was basically a window. So you could just like stand outside and watch the show, but you would just be like behind the drummer. And I remember Heath and I were just sitting there with our like jaw dropped watching the drummer refuse just murder it, right? Like it was so fucking good. But anyway, yes, I do remember that show very well, and really really kind of a funny story. It felt good to like be a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what that's they were torn on Shape of Punk to Come. They ended up having their last show in a New Brunswick basement that got shut down.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Did you get to talk to those dudes?
If we did, I do not remember, but I don't think so. We were pretty shy sometimes, so I don't remember talking to them.
Were you guys big drinkers?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Sometimes too much before a show, and definitely partied afterwards. But there was a couple shows that I remember just being so like drunk enough to know you're not playing well, and just being like, oh man, this fucking this sucks.
Yeah.
Like
And you know too by the first song, you're like, uh-oh, this is bad.
that happened at the back door in Greenville. Like I said, we did really well there. And after a while, we would play and we felt so comfortable and we would get like real drunk and loose. Like we noticed people stopped coming to see us after a while. And Billy at the back door was like he pulled us aside one time and said, "Hey, people love you. They like hanging out. They love your bands, but you're just like sloppy. So, so maybe tighten up." And we were like, "Oh, fuck. Okay." That's tough to hear, but valid, totally valid.
Did you take his advice?
For the most part, there's a few times here and there that we can get to this, but we did a European tour, and there was one show in Manchester that we were just hammered. I barely remember it. So yeah, for the most part, we tried to just have like a beer or two, not drink a 40 or whatever, before you play. And especially me as a drummer, man. I mean, you're just like you can get so tired and sloppy when you're playing this aggressive music. Like it doesn't work out all the time.
Were you trying to get on, you mentioned No Idea. Were you sending out music to like, do you remember any labels that you were sending music out to try to get on?
we definitely sent some stuff to No Idea. I think we sent stuff to Deep Elm, and I don't remember too many more. And I was trying to think about this, but we and how it came to us, and it must have come through the Rydell split, but we almost signed to Cargo Headhunter.
That was the one that did Blink's first record.
Yes. So it was a subsidiary, I think like, man, I
Matt
can't remember.
Grilled Cheese was part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I can't remember exactly how that happened, but there was a A&R guy, his name was Gubby, and he reached out to us and they really wanted to do our record. And this is where the timeline gets a little fuzzy too, is I can't remember if we had already recorded the record and sent the record to Headhunter Cargo, and that's how they got interested, or if they were interested just based off the split. We were close. We were really, really close. Scene Police wanted to do the record. At that point, Dennis and the other Scene Police people there, we were friends with them. So we toured with another band on Scene Police in the States called Tupamaros. So we had actually met Dennis and hung out with him, and we just got along with him really well. We were just really trying to weigh the like, okay, Dennis is our friend. He's put stuff out for us already. He really wants to do this record. But, we have Headhunter Cargo that wants to do the record. And we were like massive fans of some of their bands, like Jehu and like Boys Life. I think one of their records came out on Headhunter Cargo. But we were just like, okay, this is the next step, right? We get to like, here we go. Like we can, try to like level up. But really what happened at the end of the day is I I was very suspicious of Headhunter Cargo. I felt like that time there was like this like grab for like emo bands or whatever. Headhunter Cargo had folded once. Like they went bankrupt. I do not know this to be true, so this is just my theory.
Yeah, we can make shit up. It's fine.
Yeah. We are in that world, aren't we? Where we can just make
Hey,
whatever
everything. There's
whatever.
no real truth, man.
So in my world, Blink blew up, right? And they were like big for like a year or two or whatever. And what I thought to be the case is they potentially saw a little bit of like money coming back in the door, right? From Blink blowing up and people buying the old records. Just a theory that they were trying to like restart the label. They were just kind of like grabbing for bands, and it didn't feel the contract. And Chris actually just sent me he kept the contract, which is insane. So we were looking through like the first page or two of it, but they weren't really offering any tour support, no merch. While we were talking to Head on Our Cargo, we were talking to Dennis at Scene Police, and finally Dennis said, "If you put the record out with me, I will book you a European tour and we'll get you over here." And that was pretty much it. We were like, okay, like if Headhunter Cargo is not going to support us in any way besides put the record out, let's go to Europe, right? Like that sounded way better to us. So that's what we did. So Dennis ended up having a conversation with Headhunter and Cargo, and they offered like a P&D deal to Scene Police that it would still be on Scene Police, but they would do the production and distribution. Is that what it is? Production and distribution? Anyway, so there was going to be sort of this split kind of release, but I don't think it was a very good deal for Dennis. He didn't really want to do it. And again, he was just our friend. And we got to go to Europe. So the record came out, I can't remember the exact date in 2000. We went over, let's see, February. I have a picture of the tour dates. Let's see if I can send them to you. But we did, let's see, beginning of February and all of March. We did 5.5 weeks in Europe.
Oh wow, how was that?
It was amazing. I really hate to think like that was the best time of my life, right? Like I don't believe like in the like glory days, like, but it was one of the coolest things I got to do. That was my first time overseas, and being able to do that in a band I don't know, man, it was incredible. That's the longest tour we ever did. That was the
That's a
longest tour we
long
had,
tour, dude.
and we had 3 days off. Some of the coolest experiences, but when you're doing, I mean, touring anywhere like that, you don't get to, you don't see much, you're like, it's just show to show to show to show. And I think out of the 5.5 weeks or so, we did 3 weeks in Germany, something like that, which is a lot of Germany, right? That's like, and Germany's not big, but it was cool that a country that of that size can like support that many shows, and most of them were great. I think we did a week in Europe, or a week in the UK, 3 weeks in Germany. We did a week in Scandinavia, and then back for a few shows in Germany. But man, it was awesome. We got treated so well. Like it, sometimes I hear bands that say they really hate touring Europe or they like always had a bad experience there or whatever. And that just wasn't the case for us. Most of the shows are well attended. And I don't know if that's just because our label was from Europe.
Is that ISY?
No, that was Scene Police.
Oh, okay.
So Scene Police was based out of Germany, and one of the guys lived in England as well. They did like a tour 7 inch, a split 7 inch with Rydell and Hot Water Music. Man, we had a great time. There was a few things that were a roadie Brandon. He ended up getting pneumonia, and I still feel awful about this, but we had to leave him. We had to leave him in a German hospital. And it's hard to justify, right? Because if
It's
you
life
like
on the
think
road,
back,
man.
yeah, yeah, yes. Later, loser. I hope you get better. But he really he was like, you may never be back over here, right? And he's like, you can't stop the tour. And we were ready to. We were like, okay, well, let's just stop. Let's see if you get better. He was like, please don't, please don't. So he got sick, and he was in the hospital for a week or so, maybe like 5 days, something like that. And then some friends of Dennis from Scene Police, or friends of a person that put on a show for us, took Brandon in and like gave him a place to stay for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 days while he got better. But he ended up meeting back up with us. I think did the last week or so with us. He was really, really sick. We were just like at someone's apartment. I remember him having like a bowl of steaming hot water and a towel over his head, trying to like, dislodge whatever was in him. And he was coughing and he was shivering and just like, and finally we're like, you got to go to the hospital. So we took him in, and they were like, yeah, if you came in one more day, or like waited one more day, you wouldn't be here. You'd be dead.
Holy shit, man.
Yeah, he was definitely ill. I think every one of us got sick on that tour, but not pneumonia, on death's door sick.
Dude, getting sick on tour is the fucking worst. It's so because it's like you got to get up and fucking perform, and you're just stuck in a van. You're in some shit ass hotel. There's like no comfort at all for you. So to know that you the dude almost died, that's
Yeah,
insane.
it's still, like I said, we're still tight with Brandon. We see him. It's still this thing that every once in a while I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. I can't believe we left you. It's yeah, man, you're besides our, one of our best friends almost dying. Europe was great. There was crazy shows. Just like we played a women's prison in Germany. That was actually really cool. That was awesome. So there, it was just part of the prison's like rec program, right? They understood that these women are in here, these young girls are in here, and most of them were just like minor drug charges, but they need stuff to do. So they had this budget for whatever, just like some sort of recreational experiences. And I'm not sure how Scene Police found this. And I remember we drove up to the prison, and it's like an older prison. And there's just like these giant iron like gates, like big doors. And they open up and you drive in, and there's another set, but the set of doors behind you close. And it was like so loud. I remember some of us like screaming, like Brian just like screamed so loud about this. And then you like drive in, and the show was in a basement, and it was just like out of I don't know, man. Is that like a some weird movie, like a World War II movie or something? Like it was nice, but it looked like it looked like a fucking dungeon to me. All the women were like so pumped, and they were like, we got a tour, and it really was just like it was like low security, and it really just looked like dorm rooms. There was like posters up, and there was like, tie-dyed sheets hanging and beads. Like it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool to see.
Were they just like walking around, just freely walking around, or are they
Yeah,
behind?
yeah, yeah, for the most part. Yeah. I don't know if that's just like the time of day they were allowed to just kind of be free.
But like you're walking in their quote unquote dorm area and they're just walking by you.
Yeah, so the warden gave us a tour, which is super cool. And Brian and Chris had really, really big beards at the time. And some of the girls were like walking up to them. We're like, hey, next time you come in, smuggle joints in your beard. And they were like, are you fucking crazy? Like, I'm not smuggling drugs into a prison. I don't think we're coming, this is awesome, but I don't think we're coming back here. But it was cool, man. They got like dressed up and we're dancing, and we were on tour with, at the time, another Scene Police band called Lockjaw. And they were just like, I don't mean this to sound derogatory, but they were just like pretty young, like pretty, right? Like pretty boys. Like they were just like handsome little, like younger punk rock band. And they're so awesome. They were just like, but man, all of those girls were just like, when we were leaving, they were like throwing pieces of paper at Lockjaw and just like, and I don't remember if there was like their like address or phone number or whatever, but they were really trying to keep in touch with like all these like cute little boys. I thought it was awesome.
Wait, were these it was probably the worst question, but were they like attractive women?
I don't, I honestly don't remember.
I just feel like from a guy perspective at that time, it's like, yeah, we're going to this women's prison and they're all just like hot. And if you're 19 or 20, just being like, this is
Right.
amazing. Not like I would think that at 46 because that would be immature.
Right. Um, yeah, I do not remember being taken by any of them. I don't know, maybe.
That's the best way to put that. I wasn't smitten by any means. What year was that again?
2000.
Okay, what month was that? You said.
Let's see. It would have been that was probably March.
So that was like right around the time where we played with you guys, the Diggers show. Because I'm looking at it right now. March 14th is when we played Taste of World with you guys. Again, just blows my mind that you guys have this. Oh no, we had met back in 99 in June of 99. Oh wow. No, January, not Jesus Christ. Okay. Yeah, that was when we played the show. We like froze in the fucking rider truck. So you guys do that, but then it's really not that long between that and you guys having your last show in June 2000, from what it says here.
Yeah, so 90, so that show on that list was not our last show. So I think we broke up in 2003,
Oh, wow.
and um
Gotta update this list.
yeah, man. Chris probably has a lot of the shows documented, but we ended up doing a couple more tours at least after the European tour. There's this band from Athens called Carrie Nations, and we did a tour with them. That was actually our last tour. I'm trying to think. So 2000, yeah, I don't know, man. We really got back from the European tour, and we felt like a little lost. We had this amazing time. It was the best tour we had ever been on. We got treated well. We got fed every day. We got free beer every day. All the shows were good for the most part. And then we got home and we didn't really know what to do. We were kind of lost. We were like, okay, we'll play some more shows, and I guess we'll start writing another record. And that's where the ISY songs come in. But we felt a little like anchorless. We just weren't really doing much. I wish I could find some of those other shows.
Well, man, that's a long gap though. And it's like you're doing this in 2000. the only thing I see after that year is 2001 Discogs. You could do like that split with Exit 86, Donkey Punch, Guff the Mids, and Possessed of a Du Bois Future. Or maybe that was the name of it.
Possessed of a dubious.
Dubious Future. Yes. Okay, yeah, it's like a one, two, three, four, five-way split. I don't know, for 3 years, you basically were just kind of just like in a slump, or was that just like a small
Yeah,
amount of
I
time?
mean, no, I think we kind of were in a slump, man.
It's a long ass time.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think that's kind of what killed the band.
Well, how did you guys get along as like internally as a band?
Mostly great. There, there were definitely fights. I mean, dude, it's never like always great.
I don't know. Some bands have told me that they had a great time. I'm like, fuck you,
Uh,
you lucky bastards.
we had our issues. There was a couple strong personalities. Okay, I just sent you the European tour list. Touring is like hurry up and wait, right? You're like driving, driving, driving. You get there and you just wait around. And maybe you don't have any money, so you can't really go do anything. Maybe you know some people in whatever town you're in, you can hang out. But if not, you're just waiting at the like club or the house, and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And it's really hard on some people, and it gets, I don't know, it really just can like beat you down. Yeah, yeah, it gets old. And you're like, okay, well, I don't, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? We're we're not like old by any means, but and then you just start getting cranky at everybody. Maybe not everybody, but you start having these moments, and I think some of us just were not, we had our fights, but we didn't have too many of them. But we just like sometimes we would sort of separate ourselves, right? And we're like, okay, well, maybe me and Brian are just gonna go walk around, or maybe Chris and I are gonna walk around. For the most part, we got along. Towards the end, it again at the end, you're like, for us anyway, we never were like we didn't know how to level up, and I'm not sure that part of it I think was probably being lazy and not really like going after, or not knowing how to go after the like next level or whatever you want to call it.
Well, did you guys like have a vision of doing that, or you would? I mean, I think sometimes that could be an issue where it's you're kind of like, well, we're doing this thing, and that's all we really thought about, and now we're kind of just doing it, but we didn't have a focus, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, I think so. And honestly, maybe part of it is like we just maybe, when we got back from Europe, and when any band gets back from a long tour, you're just tight, right? You're like, you don't, it's all like muscle memory. You're locked in, you like, you almost, it's like a flow state, right? You're almost not even like thinking about the songs. You're just like, you're just doing it and it feels good and you're having fun. For a long time, I just don't think we were like that good, right? So it was until the end where I think we kind of hit our stride and we're like, okay, this felt like we're going in this direction, right? Like these songs are like, I feel like we can write easier and it's a little darker direction, but I think part of that was our like mindset, and we're like a little depressed. We don't know what we're doing, but we can channel all of this sort of frustration into these songs, right? Like we can, and that felt like that felt good, right? Like, and we're like, okay, second record, we're writing these songs, but what do we do? Like, do we try to do Scene Police again? I think Dennis would have put the record out. I think maybe at the time, Headhunter and Cargo had folded again, or maybe like, I don't remember having any sort of communication with them after we passed with the first record. And then there was that label ISY that put that comp out, and I think they were going to put the record out for us, but it was a new label, right? They didn't, and it was just like our buddies in Athens, and I think they were like dedicated and wanted to do this label, but they didn't really know what they were doing. And in their defense, they were going to throw some money behind the record and help us pay for the recording, and I think they even printed shirts for us. So it's not like they weren't doing anything, but we didn't know how to get a booking agent. We didn't know how to get a manager. We didn't know if we wanted that. Like it kind of feels like we're in limbo, right? Like we had toured the DIY like scene forever, but is that what we wanted to do? Is that going, are we going to be happy?
How old are you guys at this point?
Early 20s, I guess. Early 20s, mid 20s.
It's funny, just from talking to people, I've said so many times, like it's early 20s. It's your now how old we are looking at that. I'm like, you have just so much time. You could do whatever. But my nephew is turning 23 and he's just like, yeah, I just like watching him just being like, I don't really know what I'm doing. He's like working some job. He like kind of likes and he's just kind of just doing a bunch of shit and he's just seems so lost, and I think that there's this pressure that I forgot about at that time. So if you are there and you're kind of like, there is that element that does exist because you're like, I should be a fucking adult now.
Yeah, yeah. And if you've spent most of your like late teenage, early 20 years in a DIY punk band or whatever, you might not have many skills. For the most part, I started working in kitchens right when I moved to Athens. So I took to that. I felt like I was pretty good at that. And it was always, and especially in Athens, it was just sort of kind of a given. If someone's working in a restaurant, they're probably in a band. And most employers knew that. And you could pretty easily get time off to go on tours and still have your job when you came back. So in Athens, that was relatively easy to do. That was always just sort of this like, okay, well, I'm a line cook or whatever. It, but I only do that in between tours or in between shows. But yeah, you can really start feeling like lost. And if the band isn't like doing much and you're just treading water, it really starts to get like a little dark. You're like, well, fuck, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember that.
and I think potentially that's some of the issues with like us getting along as a band is just kind of being frustrated and like just a little angsty, right? That's just at least that's how it felt for I guess maybe hindsight. It's just like, man, Chris is being cranky. I don't fucking want to hang out with him. Or like Jason is like this is such a small story, but it's like Jason really loved radishes. And you're like, dude, you can't eat radishes in the van. It's like that fucking stinks, dude.
Oh, do they
Like so
stink? I was thinking, I was like, wow, why would they be? What would be the problem with them?
they don't necessarily stink, except if that's all you've eaten and like Jason's like burping like radish burps into the van. You're like, oh my God, dude. No more fucking radishes. Yeah. So back to your question, we mostly got along, and like, dude, I met Jason when I was in like third grade. We were literally we had all known each other like our whole lives. Like Jason was in I think fifth grade. Brian moved to town when I was in sixth grade, so I've known Brian since I was in sixth grade, and then Chris wasn't too far after that. I think I met Chris when I was in like seventh grade or eighth grade. So it was like you've just been friends with these people your whole life, like literally your whole life. Like I can't remember too much time without being friends with Jason, and that's hard sometimes, right? They're family, and you're not always going to get along.
Well, you're also on the same path together, right? So it's like if you're just friends, you can hang out and then go your separate ways and you go in a different direction in your life, not having them be a part of it. When it's the four of you get in a van consistently and someone's not on the same page, there's like resentment and you just look at them differently. And then as soon as that's done, you immediately can have your friendship again, as long as it's built on a solid foundation.
Yeah, and for the most part, that happened with us.
How did it come to an end?
Um, we were on tour with Carrie Nations, and they were really good friends of ours. And I don't know if you ever heard that band. I don't. There might be. There's certainly other bands out in the world called Carrie Nations. I think they were one of the best bands to come out of Athens ever. They're just like in that Planet X record scene, a little like folk punk, hippie punk. I don't know, they may cringe if they listen to this and I just called them that. Man, just so good. I don't maybe some super chunk influence. Anyway, super big and like deep DIY scene, right? So we were on tour with them and it was maybe like 2 weeks long. And we were at the end of it and we were in Pensacola, Florida. And I believe we were staying at Terry from This Bike is a Pipe Bomb's house. There was a like playground, like basketball court across the street from their house. And I don't know why. I don't know what really prompted it, but me and Jason and Brian went across the street and we were just hanging out. And honestly, and I'll have to like warn Chris, I'm gonna say this, but I think we are just like really, really like I think Chris was just really getting on our nerves. And we just wanted like a little bit of space from him at the time. And I don't remember the exact conversation, but I think we are just this is getting old, right? Like all of it's kind of getting old, not just hanging out with Chris, but just like tours. Tours are tough. We're not like we don't know really what we're doing at that point. Like there's a lot of tension. We're not necessarily getting along. And Jason just kind of fell on the sword for us. I can basically be done. I will say that I'm done. We're like, okay. And I think he was like he had a very long-term girlfriend at the time and he was feeling a little like lost. And I think he was sort of over it and he was like, "Well, let me just do it. Let me just like say I'm done." And we had the attitude that it was the four of us or it's nothing. And I can't imagine having done that band with anyone else than the other three or the four of us or whatever. So that was it. And we were like, "Okay, well, I guess let's be done." I don't remember the exact time we told Chris. It may have been in the van on the way home. I think that show in Pensacola was the last one on the tour, but that was basically it. And we decided to do a last show, and we did it at that DIY space. And it was also a practice space called Tight Pockets. And man, that place was so cool. So many shows. So just like name the band, and they had like played there, right? Like a lot of Against Me shows. Fucking like Mastodon played there before they got huge. Anyway, it's just like a cool practice space, show space. I think we actually recorded a couple songs there. There's one song on that file that I sent you. It's called "Down with the Ship." That was recorded in Tight Pockets. Yeah, man. We just decided that was it. We were like, okay, let's just be done. We planned a last show, and it was Whippersnapper, Carrie Nations, X86, this band called This Scares Me. And we really liked everyone in that band, but they were not, they sort of just asked to play. That was like a, no offense to them. But we were like, fuck it. Yeah, This Scares Me can play. Like, okay. And I think that was it. I think it was those five bands. And it was awesome. It was super cool. Somewhere there's a recording of it, which is awesome to have. I can't remember, and it's like on a hard drive somewhere. And I haven't listened to it in probably a decade. But from what I remember, we played like we're just so like excited to play one more time. And it really was like it wasn't a like it didn't feel like a funeral, you know. It felt like more of a celebration. Like, okay, let's just go out. Let's go out with a bang. Let's have fun.
How was the crowd for you?
Awesome. It was probably the biggest Athens show we ever played, which, you know, it's like kind of bittersweet. But there was a lot of people and this may not be true, but there's a lot of people there that I don't think I'd ever seen at any of our other shows. Maybe they just decided, well, we have one last chance to check this band out. Let's go. Or there wasn't like a bigger, better show happening in town, and you know, it was something to do. Man, I remember listening back, and I mean, we probably played all those songs twice as fast. It's like, how in the fuck did I play that fast? And I was like, how did anyone keep up? Because it was like mostly me. Like I would count the songs in or whatever. I'm like, man, I feel bad. I just made Brian and Chris and Jason try to keep up with me. And like, when you play that fast, you like lose some of the like nuances of songs, you're like, well, that breakdown is just not a breakdown anymore, That's so yeah, man, that was the last show, and we actually ended up playing three or four more shows. We kind of pulled
That
that
card,
old chestnut. Yep.
was that like in the same area, or did you leave the state and go to different cities?
No, we all of our last shows were in Athens, and it felt like a couple of those were like, okay, maybe we just needed a break. Maybe we just need a little time away. And it felt good. Like it felt like, okay, we clicked back into it pretty well. Most of the shows went well. The last show, the actual very last show, I kind of wish we hadn't have played. It was with this band. They were just like a rock band. This band called Cherry Valance. Did you ever hear that band?
Mm-mm. No.
Everything recorded I've ever heard doesn't do them justice. But holy fuck, dude! I remember watching them, and it was upstairs at Tasty World, and I had this giant smile on my face, and I was like, "Fuck, dude! Like I'm basically seeing Led Zeppelin right now." It was just like this crazy good like rock band. And the guy that owned Taster World really loved Hunter Gatherer, really loved Cherry Valance. I was like, I want to see these two bands together. I'm like, okay, cool. We had gotten in a fight on the walk up to Tasty World. And I remember it was just like I have no clue what we were fighting about. I have no idea what sparked it. But I remember me and Chris just like screaming at each other in the middle of the street. And it's hard to like come back from that, right? It's hard to like, okay, we thought maybe we are getting back together. We hadn't really like talked about getting together, but it just felt like, okay, we're gonna keep this thing going. And then just like getting in this huge fight and trying to go play a show. And honestly, there was probably some like whiskey and beer involved. And it was one of those shows I just remember playing, and it wasn't that well attended. So there was no like vibes, right? There was no like, didn't feel like a lot of like crowd interaction. And I remember not being over the fight. I remember like just being like, fuck this. Like this, all of this sucks, right? Like this show isn't good. We're not playing well. I just got in a fight with one of my best friends. Fuck this. In the end, that was the last show we played.
That sucks.
If you can find video of Cherry Balance, they were so fucking good. I don't know if you're into that like that kind of music, but at one point they had two drummers and both of the drummers sang, but what they would do is they would like both be playing and they're fucking awesome drummers. And then all of a sudden one of them would get up and go to the front and grab the mic and sing a song or like part of a song. And then he would just like kind of like swagger back behind the drum set and then just like totally just like lay it back down in beat on time with the other drummer. And, and again, I still have the flyer. It's like a really beautiful poster for that show. So it's like this bittersweet thing, right? It's like, man, we just played a really shitty show. I think this band is actually done. But holy fuck, I just saw Led Zeppelin. It was that good of a rock band.
I think I found some videos. There's the Cherry Valance Gold Dollar, Detroit, Michigan, 14 years ago, and then there's Cherry Valance Booty Shaking video from 18 years ago. So I don't know. And that's Platonics? That's the only live one. Oh, the Cherry Valance live at King's Barcade 2003. Yeah, this one's got two drummers. Have to watch this. That's I I know I've had that happen where you have this blowout fight, you get on stage, and it's either you can kind of dismiss it, and for the 30, 40 minutes that you're up there, when you're done, it comes back and you're like, all right, fuck you. Or it just carries and you're like, I fucking hate you. I don't care that we're playing in front of people right now. And that just blows. That's like your last show and that happens. I mean, is that like with all of the, with all the resurgence of you guys finding all these photos and you have the Instagram thing going, like, what does that mean for that being the last show?
There's no possibility of another show.
Here's the part where Matt goes into what happened to Jason.
Mike, thanks for agreeing to add this in. I thought speaking more in depth about Jason's passing just deserved a bit more attention. It was kind of important to the story of Hunter Gatherer, and maybe it could help someone struggling with alcohol or help others reach out to friends or family who might be having a hard time with alcohol. As someone who most standards and measures would be considered an alcoholic, I do believe the change has to come from within, and truly you have to want to stop and get help. Doesn't mean, however, that it's a lost cause to check in or try to help others and talk to them about it. Like I said, Jason had been struggling for years with alcohol abuse, and it wasn't until it was too late that most of his friends knew how bad it had gotten. We had some ideas, but honestly, we're all pretty shocked how long it had gone on and just how bad it was. On February 18th, Lisa, his wife, texted a few of us about Jason being in the hospital. He was in the PCU and his liver was in really bad shape. I was fortunate enough and feel fortunate enough that we lived very close to each other. So after I got the text, I was able to go to the hospital and visit him. And I don't think I would ever have been prepared to see someone in that bad of shape, and especially someone that I've known for so long and was one of my best friends. It was really bad. And, I've known what jaundice was and is. And man, it's just like the yellow skin, the yellow eyes. It was truly shocking. He had fallen at some point and his face was bruised and cut. He had black eyes. It was really, really intense. So over the next week or so, we'd hear all these stories how Jay had been behaving over the last few years. Really just kind of classic addict behavior, hiding booze and water bottles, showing up to his daughter's basketball games, drunk, just like a laundry list of bad decisions and behaviors. Really, at the end of the day, for me as a child, an alcoholic father, I can relate and really imagine the embarrassment and trauma that he sort of just like bestowed onto his daughters and his wife. It's really sad. And at some point, Lisa had enough after a few, especially just kind of like frightening episodes where she just felt her and the kids weren't safe. So she made the decision to kick Jason out of the house. But with the caveat of him getting help. So it wasn't just like you're out, I'm done, which I probably had all the right in the world to do. Just like, hey, you have to go get help, and then we can figure this out, or at least try to figure it out. And Brian and I had known he'd been kicked out, but we had just one side of the story, and it was Jason's, and he certainly wasn't honest about why he'd been kicked out, and he made it seem like Lisa was being unreasonable. So he was sleeping in his car, sometimes parked out in front of his house. His father lived pretty close in Pooler where he was living, and he would sleep over there sometimes, just sleep in his car in his dad's apartment complex. And multiple times I reached out to him and offered up my guest room in me and my wife's house. And we have a small camper. It's parked in, our driveway, sort of in this like behind our house, close to a garage. But, we offered that multiple times. It was so unreasonable to me, thinking, again, one of my oldest friends is like, 20 minutes away, sleeping in his car. And in hindsight, we should have known that things were really bad then. So sometime last year, Jason went to visit his dad, and he just hadn't heard from his dad in a few days, and they were really close. So he decided to go check in on him. And he had found his dad dead in his apartment. He had fallen off a stepladder, and he either had a stroke while on the stepladder and passed, or he had fallen off the stepladder, hit his head and had a stroke. And the trauma of that, I think, really sent Jason into much more of a spiral and kind of out of control for the next few months. And, later we would sort of find out just again how out of control it got. He refused help from his job multiple times. They offered to get him into rehab. He eventually just stopped showing up to work. He drained his 401k. We can only assume it was just buying alcohol. He stopped making payments on the mortgage because he lost his job. His family's insurance lapsed. He hadn't gotten his father's estate in order. Just a huge mess that eventually he would just let his wife and family kind of inherit. So Brian eventually came down, and he and I went and, we'd visit Jay in the hospital and have conversations with Lisa and just kept learning more and more. And at one point we decided that we should, FaceTime or Zoom with Chris. Because what happens naturally is, when any of us got together or, talk on the phone, hunter gatherer would come up at some point, and not in like a glory days way, but it was just such a huge just time in our life, and really, I don't know, it was just formative. So we zoomed with Chris, and it was really just a beautiful moment for us, even unfortunately in an awful set of circumstances. And I think the four of us hadn't been in the same room or talked all together in easily a decade. Eventually, Jay got moved to hospice after it became clear his liver wasn't going to bounce back, and organ failure was imminent, and a transplant just wasn't going to be an option. Wasn't on the table for that for multiple reasons. So he got moved to hospice, and he went back to his father's apartment. And his wife Lisa cleaned the apartment up. They had found him there initially, and it was just a mess. I won't get into it, but it was a real terrible scene. So he ended up back there in hospice, kind of surrounded by loved ones. And I was able to visit him a few times, which I'm still very thankful for, that I live so close that I was able to see him. And one particular time, he asked if I would push him around in this wheelchair, go outside. He really wanted to get some sun. I remember feeling all these just range of emotions: anger, sadness for me, my friends, but mostly his wife and daughters just still crushes me. But while pushing him to this little pond in this really suburban apartment complex in Pooler, I started to actually feel grateful to have this moment with him, and it was wonderfully tender. Just having, I guess maybe for me, coming to peace with the situation, and just two old friends really not talking about anything too deep and just kind of shooting the shit. And it's just ingrained in my memory and in my brain right now of just what a beautiful moment it was. And it ended up being our last real conversation. And this may sound cold, but another thing that just hit me while I was pushing him around, and I was just looking down at his head, and mainly from just a scientific lens or eye, I just couldn't believe how a body could transform this way. I mean, the color of the skin I don't know how to describe it. And besides it just, being sad but fascinating. So over the next week or so, we'd all call, text, FaceTime with him and talk to Lisa and hear more about Jason being able to visit with his three daughters. And it seems all of them really coming to terms with the situation of finding peace with each other. And I think it's a beautiful thing at the end for that to be able to happen. I don't think that happens all the time in these situations. But I saw Jay, I visited him on a Saturday afternoon, and he was pretty incoherent, mostly sleeping. And I think he just popped up one time, looked at me, and he said, "Hey, I know you." And that was mostly it. He, over that week, started sundowning a little bit. He was hallucinating. He had a little British owl friend that was outside his window. And we would just kind of laugh about those things. Even as sad as it is, finding humor in it, maybe is important. Maybe it's a defense mechanism. But that Saturday, he kept asking when he'd be able to see the girls, and there were plans for all of them to come over and spend time with him. And on Sunday, March 9th, he passed after seeing his girls, and we truly believe he was just waiting around one more day to be able to see them before he left. And for the most part, that's, there's some few details here and there left out, but there are some bright sides. Man, I hate saying bright sides, but a few things came out of it that I didn't really expect. And me, Brian, and Jason and Chris were just so close for a long time, and life happens, and you sort of maybe don't keep up as much. But one of the things that came out of this is Brian, myself, and Chris, we've really kept up more with Lisa and getting updates and letters from the family getting invited to Jason's oldest daughter's graduation and seeing pictures from her engagement and just all these things and just keeping up. And the girls really want to know more about Jason. And even doing this podcast, as hard as it is to talk about this part in Jason's passing, I think they're really going to love to hear some of the stories involved with Hunter Gatherer in Jay, and that's why part of the reason why I felt adding this extra little part about it was important. But I guess that's it, and I really appreciate this getting in. If there is time, I know I'm sending this over kind of at the 11th hour, but again, check in on your friends. I know it's corny and your loved ones, but just check in on them. Tell the people that you love that you love them.
And now we get back into the rest of the interview.
So that we would never do a show without him. There would be no like, hey, let's get someone to fill in for Jason. It's just like, Hunter Gatherer it was the four of us. So there is no possibility for another show. I won't get into too much, but Chris isn't he's got some health issues that will kind of prevent him from playing any more shows. And then I think for Brian, this sounds harsh, but I think Brian has no interest. I think he's sort of just like,
I don't think that's
I
harsh.
don't,
I think it's just, could be like, it's, yeah, man, that was your stage of your life.
yeah, I don't think he has much interest. So, but what I think me, Chris, and Brian do have an interest in is sort of just documenting the stuff that we did do. The record never saw much distribution. I think maybe it got pressed twice. There's some debate about that, but I think it got pressed twice, so probably at the most, like 2,000 records, which I don't know. To me, that's like pretty good success for a DIY punk band. There's the ISY songs that I can't remember how many of that comp got pressed, but that's not really out there. The 7-inch isn't really out there. The Rydell split, like anyway, none of this stuff is like readily available besides the records on Spotify. So people can find that.
I didn't even look on Spotify just because you sent me that folder.
Yeah, there's our
Oh,
record.
oh, duh.
So it's Low Standards for High Fives was the name of the record.
Oh yeah, I love that fucking artwork, by the way.
Yeah, that's this
It's great.
German artist Lars Henkel, and he did the art for the Rydell split as well.
Yeah, I was gonna point that out too. I saw that. I was looking through the Scene Police Records Instagram because they tagged you in a bunch of photos. So I was like on your page. You guys all have 9 posts, and I saw like the tag thing, and I was like, oh shit, there's a whole bunch of them. And you guys were gnarly looking dudes back then. Yeah, the split that I was just staring at it. I was like, man, I wish I had that as like a shirt. That's so cool looking.
Yeah. Lars stuff is fantastic.
Yeah, is he still an artist? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, there it is. Lars Schenkel.
My brother,
Lars Henkel, sorry.
my brother's a graphic designer. He did the layout for the Low Standards record. He did the layout for the demo, the 7-inch. He also, just a quick little note, he did the layout for Whippersnapper's Long Walk and their last record. So he's sort of just he's been around doing stuff like that.
Wait, this is the Lars guy?
No, sorry, this is my brother.
Oh,
Um,
oh, shit.
my
Okay.
my yeah, my older brother Eric is a graphic designer. So anyway, why I bring that up is my brother has a boutique record label, and they're sort of the thing they do is these like 100-page books. A lot of it is art. Some of it is, man, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like representation, like artistic representation of like the records that they put out or whatever, and it's all like it accompanies the records. It's really cool. Like they do a really good job. My brother just put out their label, Aqualam just put out a book of collage artists, And Lars Henkel is in that book because he does a lot of collage stuff as well. Anyway, just like full kind of weird full circle stuff.
Where do I see that?
Uh, if you go to Aqualam
Aqua
Records,
lamb, like the
yeah,
lamb, like the animal.
yeah. So if you go to his Instagram, he's certainly posted about the book that they just put out.
Just gotta really narrow this thing down. He wants people to buy it, dude. I just real quick too. I just followed. I followed your Instagram with my comic, which is my personal, based on my personal. But then I followed Lars. He's followed by the drummer of fucking Mastodon.
Whoa,
That's cool as shit. Yeah,
that's
it's
crazy.
Creamel. It's you and Creamel. I love art stuff. Like since now everything's so digital, I would say I'm really doing a great job of getting my hands on physical stuff, but it's like I don't know, there's something to it when you just see it and if it's like a physical print or something, it's
Absolutely.
it
Yeah.
feels bigger, man.
Yeah.
Just because
Yeah.
everything is on Instagram and you're like this little tiny square is not doing me justice.
Which leads me back to the like why we started the Instagram. Part of it is just to sort of like document, just throw stuff up there that like the things that we did do. But part of it too is just sort of see if there's actually any slightest bit of interest in what we did. And part of that is we want to, I say repress, but we want to press the record on vinyl. We have a couple labels interested. One is my brother's label, and I think what they're going to do is maybe like a book component, right? Like a almost like oral history, almost a lot of flyers, pictures. We want to reach out to some people and see if they remember any like tour mates or whatever, see if there's any like stories that people remember about us. The record actually came out, it was a split release, and I should have mentioned this, I feel awful, but it was put out by Scene Police and a UK label called Engineer. And Engineer is interested in doing the repress of the vinyl. Probably the other component of all this is doing a discography. So the discography may actually just end up being digital because it's like all together there's like 30 something songs. And that's a lot of vinyl, right? That's a for a band that no one really gives a shit about. It's a lot of money to like drop on a record that's probably would have to be like three records or so.
All right, man. For the sake of time, I gotta end this. But so last two questions. One for us, last one. What would you like to plug? It could be about you, it could be about a friend or cause, it could be about all of them.
Um, Man, I think I just kind of did it. We're, like I said, we're working on getting stuff together for the Hunter Gatherer discography and vinyl press of our record. And that'll be released somehow on Engineer, and they're based out of the UK. And my brother's label, Aqualand, will be involved. And I think that'll basically, their involvement will be the book. They usually do like 100-page book. So I think we have enough stuff to really fill that up. And we're kind of talking about how to package that, right? Like if it's like letterpress stuff, I don't know. Like just my brother's very like the good thing about his label and my brother in general is like they really pay attention to detail and they're very artistic people. Not to say that Engineer isn't, but I think they will put a lot of thought into it and sort of direct it into a way that will make it feel like it's worthy of buying, right? Like it is a collector's item is I think what like how we package it will be cool. So I think that's kind of it. I don't want to sound like we're like trying to push too much, but we certainly on the lookout for other labels that might be interested in doing like splitting the cost of that. So we're just kind of throwing that out there to the world, which is one of the reasons why I started following you and wanted to reach out. Is just sort of like I hate plugging stuff, right? But you know, we're just I think it's cool to go down a little bit of the memory lane, especially your like, late 90s, early 2000s. I think it was such an awesome time in the scene, man. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of cool bands, and it's cool to document stuff from sort of like this like completist mindset, right?
Yeah, it was definitely accidental. So it's kind of cool that it just kind of just fell over it and get to meet all. I mean, it's cool to like have a conversation with people that I haven't talked to in 25 years and I never thought I would. Then I was like, oh wow, and or just meeting new people that or bands that I've loved or producers and all of a sudden we're like having side conversations through Instagram. And I was like, what the fuck is going on right now? Well, cool, dude. All right. So last question. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
This is one that I've actually been thinking about a lot and try to figure out how to really answer it, honestly. And I think it boils down to just the lens in which I see the world through comes from the DIY punk scene. And what I think I like gets to is like treating people well and equally and just like I don't know how to describe it beyond that, but it's like and especially in a restaurant setting, right? Is like be kind, be like generous to people, help people, right? And that's sort of what I took from the punk scene, and we didn't always practice that, right? But but I tried, right? And we just like we met so many nice people. And again, going back to the very beginning of this conversation, when you're like, yeah, we slept in our box van in the middle of January, I'm like, I can't believe we didn't offer you a place to stay. Like, that's insane because that's like, we had so many, like, even if it wasn't bands that we played with, we tried to really offer bands place to stay. Like, I don't want to go too far because I know we're trying to get off the phone here, and this is a tangent, but just like we saw at the drive-in and Hot Rod Circuit at the 40 Watt in Athens, and I don't think they had anywhere to stay, and we ended up talking to them and we offered them a place to stay. But we always had bands crash with us because we normally had the room. But I think just the like scene ethics is I don't know, man. It's like when I got into the scene, what really part of the reason it attracted me is like we're sort of all in this together, right? We're like there's no rock stars, except it turns out there are, right? And there were, and I think even some of us that had more ambitions than playing house shows, like I don't think we wanted to be like, well, I never wanted to be like a giant rock star, right? So I don't know if that like makes any sense, but I think just like a general lens of like how I like operate in the world and see the world is like I always want to go to like support small businesses before large businesses and or like corporations or whatever, and like make no mistake, like I hate it, but man, I have Amazon packages right now, you know what I mean? But I don't as like a not hard and fast. I don't eat fast food, and part of that is because it's like bad for you. But I don't love the like the big business part of it, right? And anyway, I don't want to get too far down that like path. But yeah, dude, I just think it's like a a general like mindset in which I've held on to, right? And it's boils down to just like try to be fucking nice in this world and generous and kind and I guess that's it.